As someone with no friends, I spend a lot of time on Reddit. Throughout the years, I've noticed a lot of new Pokemon TCG Live players make the same exact mistakes, posting the same thing day after day, even if it was asked and answered 24 hours ago. So, to help those of you who are just like me, I've decided to count down the top 10 mistakes new TCG Live players make. The first mistake they make is going to the official website or the App Store and downloading the game. If you've never heard your computer squeal like a pig before, you will when you boot up TCG Live. It gets especially bad when they put up a maintenance warning message 5 days before it happens, forcing you to acknowledge the upcoming 8 hours of bi-weekly downtime before you can even enter the game. If you're coming from TCG Pocket and expecting the same level of polish, change your expectations. Whereas Pocket has microtransactions and a fully dedicated development team who knows what they're doing, TCG Live has made $0 in the last 3 years, meaning they have to outsource development to college students on spring break. On the plus side, at least in winter, playing TCG Live turns your phone into a heater so your hands don't get cold. Probably the biggest consequential mistake I see new PTCGL players make is buying packs. The question of which set should I open to get the best cards pops up way too often, and it's simply wrong. You see, TCG Live is geared towards spending your purple trainer points to earn gold trade credits to craft the specific cards you need, not buying packs in hopes you get the right cards. It's like how you should be buying singles in real life, not wasting money on packs. Except on Live, the pack opening experience isn't nearly as fun as holding a $100 bill to a Charmander's tail. So instead of going to the shop, clicking on expansions, picking Journey Together, and hoping to pull, say, Among Us EX, you instead want to stay on the main page of the shop. By clicking on View All Bundles, you can scroll all the way down to July 2022 and buy 4 copies of the Shadow Rider VMAX Lead Battle Deck first. Then once you've reached the limit, go for 4 copies of the Ice Rider VMAX Lead Battle Deck. After that, well, I have several videos in my starter guide linked below about this topic. It's your choice. You can either spend those trainer points on Celebrations packs, which is better in the long run, or on more lead battle decks, which is better in the short term. Just be aware that the PTCGL dev introduced an overnumbered crafting ban earlier this year. So starting with Journey Together, cards outside of a main set can't be manually crafted until 6 months after launch. They do give some of these cards out for free as rewards to regular gameplay though. But if you want one that's not offered, please don't waste your TP like you just ate Taco Bell and buy packs of a new set. Be patient and wait those 180 days to craft them with trade credits. Another mistake new players make is buying code cards. Since TCG Live doesn't have microtransactions of any kind, new players will go online to buy code cards. Now, let me quickly say that buying codes to juice your account isn't a bad idea. If you want to be able to build the best decks right away without wasting time, go ahead and whip out your credit card. After all, time is the most valuable resource anyone has. No, the biggest mistake is buying the wrong codes. The general rule of Big Toe is the smaller the set, the better it is to buy. This creates a complex mathematical equation that even Albert Einstein would struggle to comprehend. Essentially, buying the cheapest pack code from a site isn't always the way to go. Because TCG Live has a redemption limit of 400 codes per set, and you don't earn trade credits until you own 4 copies of card, you have to weigh cost versus set size versus luck versus your sanity. As you can see from the image on the left I grabbed from the PTCGL dusting simulator linked in the description, opening 400 packs of Celebrations is by far the best option. Problem is, the image on the right shows that Celebrations is by far the most expensive set, costing nearly $300 for 400 codes. But then there's all these sets in the middle offered at various prices and giving out different amount of credits. Yeah, like I said, trying to figure out the best course of action for spending money in Live would take a polymerization between the smartest and craziest person in the world. All I can say is do your best not to spend money on codes. It might take several months to get a massive collection, but PTCGL is super generous when it comes to giving out free decks and cards. If you do need to spend money though, your best bet is aiming for something like 400 of Paldean Fates for $60, which is a decent balance between cost and reward. To that end, you wouldn't believe how many new players don't know about card crafting. An insane number of people will only think they can play with cards they own and not know that every card in Standard can be crafted using trade credits, which are that Willy Wonka golden ticket currency. Part of this might have to do with TCG Pocket. While you can play with your PP 100 times and something good will come out, crafting specific cards over on Pocket is a very minor feature. It's all about opening packs and hating Wonderpick with the fury of 1,000 Sunflora. In Live, crafting cards is much quicker and easier. If you, for example, want to play a deck with Lucario EX from Prismatic Evolutions in it, but search for that Lucario EX and it doesn't appear, the fix is simple. Go to Filters, then under Show Cards, click All. Now, all of the cards available in Standard will show, including that Lucario you have 0 copies of. Click on the card you want, click Exchange, then Confirm Exchange, and Viola Davis, you now own the card. Obviously, every Lucario EX is trash, and no one in their right mind would build a deck around them, but this is meant as an example. Along the same lines, new players have no idea how to find alternate art versions of cards. To be fair, Live is kinda dumb in this respect. Whereas you're expecting each art to be represented separately, Live groups them all together. So let's say you opened a pack of Obsidian Flames and pulled a hyper rare Charizard EX but can't find it. First, you need to go to Edit Deck, then type in Charizard EX. Click on the Charizard EX, then select Available. Now you can scroll through every available art of that card, ultimately coming to the hyper rare one you just pulled. And here's a fun fact, PTCGL can't count to 60. If you get to 59 copies or more of a card, the game gives up and puts an infinity symbol instead. It's because decks can only have a maximum of 60 cards in them, but it doesn't mean it's not weird and makes you second guess if you're smarter than this video game. When it comes to the whole battling thing, new PTCGL players, especially those who migrated from PTCGO and think their whole collection is missing, don't seem to know about Expanded. And a lot of that is Live's fault. You see, when you go to build a deck, Standard is the default format, so it will only show cards that are Standard legal. Just like before, you can go to Filters, then under Format, select Expanded. Now all of the cards playable in PTCGL's Expanded format will appear. Except it's quite an ugly screen with a bunch of red warning lights like that time I spilled foot lotion in the cockpit. To build an expanded deck, you want to back out to the home page, then click on Casual. From here, click Expanded. Now when you go back to decks, every expanded legal card will appear by default. Unfortunately, nearly 4 years after they promised the full mode, Expanded is still a neutered format in PTCGL. So you can only use cards from Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, and Scarlet and Violet. Black and White and X and Y are not supported. You can always go into Filters and collect all under format to see your Black and White and X and Y cards. You just can't, do anything with them. Adding on to this, you wouldn't believe how many players take a standard deck into Expanded, then immediately get swamped by tryhards like me who know what they're doing. Because Expanded in Live doesn't have any sort of ranking system, 50% of the games are against people who have no idea what they're doing. 50% are against people who have created abominations that suck the fun out of playing Pokemon cards, and 50% don't know how to read or do math. All I will say is that if you're playing Expanded, you damn well better have staple cards like Quick Ball and Guzma and Cynthia and Dedenne GX and Crobat V, or else you're gonna have a bad time. Then there's rotation. In order to force players to spend more money on cards every year, the Pokemon Company rotates cards out of Standard. Back in the day, you'd have to pass an ink blot test to know which cards were leaving. Now you just need to have a rough idea of the alphabet. Earlier this year, every card with an F regulation mark in the bottom left was removed from Standard. There are certain situations where cards get reprinted and their legality is reset, like with Boss's Orders and Professor's Research, but those are few and far between, like my cousin's toes after he tried to pet a crocodile. What this means for the future is that cards with a G in the bottom left, like Miraidon EX, will rotate out of Standard in March 2026. Then cards with an H in the bottom left, like Terapagos EX, will be gone in March 2027. And cards that are releasing this year with an I in the bottom left, like Hopzation EX, will remain in Standard until March 2028. So when rotation comes around next year, please don't post on the PTCGL subreddit asking why all of your decks are suddenly invalid. A term I could use to describe the creations of a lot of new players is binder drop. What that means is they look at their binder, then just drop all of the good cards into a deck without really thinking about the cohesion. For instance, you might see all of your Fire-type Pokemon and decide they could all work with Charizard EX. After all, Charizard's ability accelerates fire energy, so you chuck them all in there not realizing their power level. This mostly happens in Standard Casual, but when the ladder resets you back down to Quick League every month, these things rear their ugly head. If you're looking for cohesive decks to play, or at least to get ideas, go to playlimitlesstcg.com, which is linked in the description. It's by far the best resource for tournament results, be it PTCGL or IRL. Yes, while tournaments can't be played in-game on TCG Live like they could on PTCGO, the community runs tournaments that regularly see over 100 people, and the winners are gifted code cards. My advice for those of you suffering from binder drop-itis is to start simple. Instead of putting every card that seems playable together, pair 2 cards. Then add more cards that you think might help. For example, if you see Torkoal and Charizard EX, just stick with Torkoal and Charizard EX, then build around them. Torkoal potentially does more damage based on the amount of fire energy attached to it, and Charizard accelerates fire energy. So focus on that to begin with, then add Mela for more acceleration, Experience Share to keep energy in play, and Energy Sticker to make you hate life. Oh, and you never need as much energy as you think you do. 20 is way too much for 95% of decks. Start with 10 to 12 when building a deck and adjust as necessary. One of the most common questions that pops up on Reddit is why someone's bench Pokemon received damage from Dragapult EX when they had a bench barrier Pokemon like Shaman in play. The answer is that damage and damage counters are two completely different things. Make sure you've got your homework and some Lunchables because I'm about to take you to school. Shaman's ability says that it protects all of your non-rule box Pokemon on the bench from damage. Basically, every Pokemon that gives up a single prize is safe from attacks that deal damage to the bench. So something like Wellspring Masked Ogerpon's Torrential Pump will not be able to deal that 120 damage to any of your single prizers on the bench. But Dragapult EX's Phantom Dive will be able to spread 6 damage counters to your bench Pokemon, as those are damage counters, not damage. Now that I'm looking at the image, I should probably put the red X by Ogerpon and the green check by Dragapult, but I trust you get the idea. Anyways, if you want to stop both damage and damage counters, you'll need Rabsca. Its ability protects all of your bench Pokemon from damage and effects of attacks. Damage counters from Dragapult's Phantom Dive are an effect of the attack, so those will be blocked with Rabsca's ability. Then you have Toedscruel EX, who protects all of your Pokemon with energy attached from effects of attacks. Since damage isn't an effect, Toedscruel doesn't block Ogerpon's Torrential Pump from hitting the bench. But it does block Dragapult's Phantom Dive. Yes, all this wordage can be very confusing. So all you have to remember is that damage and damage counters are two separate things and you'll be good-ish to go. Finally, and you would not believe how many times a week this is asked, but switching and or retreating breaks negative effects on your active Pokemon. If you look at Palafin EX or Blood Moon Ursaluna EX or Iono's Bellybolt EX, the effect of their attack clearly says they can't attack the following turn. To be fair, this isn't really stated anywhere, so it's a valid question. And the easiest way to sum it up is that if you retreat your active Pokemon during your next turn or switch it out of the active, then put it back in the active, it is able to attack again. Similarly, if your opponent uses Counter Catcher or Boss's Orders on their turn to switch your active, that also breaks the negative effect, allowing that Pokemon to attack again on your turn. Think of it like a status condition. If your active Pokemon is poisoned, retreating, switching, or evolving removes the poison. If your Pokemon can't attack the next turn, retreating, switching, or evolving removes the negative effect, allowing you to attack again. In real life, status conditions are represented either with poison and burn markers or by turning the card. Depending on whether it's sleep, paralysis, or confusion, you move your card 90 degrees to the right or left, or a full 180 degrees. On PTCGL, they don't do this because reasons, instead adding over-the-top effects that give you a headache. Because I like to treat my viewers like they're my Tinder dates, I'm going to disappoint you and then cry myself to sleep. I'm going to give you a bonus round. Compared to something like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh!, the Pokemon trading card game doesn't require nearly as much reading. But like all card games, you still need to know how to read, and sometimes people forget how to do that. One example I saw recently has to do with Lily's Pearl, but there's thousands of other instances like Terra Pokemon having a built-in bench barrier. When you attach a Lily's Pearl to a Lily's Pokemon like Clefairy EX, it gives up one less prize card when knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack. So if you use Raging Bolt to KO a Clefairy EX with a Pearl attached, it will give up one prize card. No, they are not cheating, and it is not a glitch, that's just how the card works. Ultimately, if there is a card in play you're not intimately familiar with, read it. Yes, the PTCGL timer might get mad at you even though you've taken 5 minutes less than your opponent overall, but it's better than embarrassing yourself in one of my streams. Hopefully, I've helped you avoid some common mistakes when starting out in Pokemon TCG Live. If you have any other tips and tricks or want to share some stories where you made a major oopsie, use the comments below.